There's so many beautiful gardens on TikTok. I love watching people's garden content, but I feel like nobody ever talks about gardening fails. And I had a pretty big garden fail this year in a couple of places, so I'd like to show people what happened and what I've been doing about it. Let's start with my tomatoes. So it is the end of July. This is my tallest tomato. It is not yet taller than I. It has one little tomato growing on it. Everyone else is kind of short. Some of my plants are really stunted, about a couple inches tall. Now you may look at that and say, I don't know what the problem is. It looks pretty good. It's okay. But this is what my tomatoes looked like 2 years ago.
Hold your breath. Make a wish.
So what happened here? This fail, I think, had like a 4-part problem. Problem number 1 was that everything I started indoors this year, I used an organic seed mix that was just awful. It had no nutrients and I didn't supplement nutrients in it. Everything is stunted. Here are a few of my leftover starts. You can see that they have not grown at all. I started these in March. Lesson learned, you need to add nutrients to your soil when you start things. Problem number 2, I decided to plant all of my raised garden beds around this tree. I thought I was just naturally working with my environment, but do you know what happens when you plant around a tree? The tree goes, oh, a great source of nutrients and water. And then it puts this all up in your garden. These are tree roots, all of these. This took up every square inch of that garden bed. My tomatoes could not compete with this giant tree. They lost all of their nutrients and just wouldn't grow. Shout out to this bonus problem. I tried to companion plant and these giant pyramids of sugar snap peas blocked out the sun for half of my plants. So they didn't have sun either. And then this is hard to see, but problem number 4 here is, do you see how pebbly and grainy my dirt looks? I got to find out this year that I had an invasive species of earthworm called Asian jumping worms, and they are the worst. They have no natural predators. They eat organic matter 10 times faster than your average earthworm. They'll actually kill off other earthworms because they'll out-eat them. And then they turn your soil into that ricey, grainy hamburger meat type texture so that it holds nutrients poorly and it holds water poorly. So basically, this whole bed is cursed. It's full of tree roots, it's full of worms. I've had to hand pick them out because there is no other way of getting rid of Asian jumping worms. So that's been fun. I hope you like handling worms if this ever becomes a problem for you. They're gnarly and they really squirm. But in case you thought we were done, here are some more gardening fails for you. All of my squash plants, every single one of them, has had squash vine borers. Unfortunately, vine borers are a pretty common problem. Most people who grow squash are going to see them. I was not being careful enough. I kept looking for eggs and then forgetting to do so. I should have been spraying my plants more. I used BT, which is a natural bacteria. It does not affect any other pollinators or insects, just stops worms. But I didn't do any of that. I forgot about this for about 3 weeks and then saw all my plants starting to die. So the most fun part is the only way to fix vine borers is you cut open the stems of your plants, take tweezers, and pull out the nasty little grubs. So again, I really hope if you're a gardener, you're not squeamish. I've done what I can. After you cut open the stems, you just rebury them in the soil. This is my butternut squash. It was pretty badly affected, but the stems are trying to make new roots, so hopefully they'll take well to the reburying. I don't know if I'm going to get any acorn or butternuts this year. We're just going to have to wait and see. I've also got flea beetles all over the damn place. You see all these tiny holes? This is my eggplant. This is from flea beetles. You're not safe container gardening, folks. They will come after you. The flea beetles also visited my potatoes, as you can see. It didn't kill them, so I have some hope here. I've had a pretty good potato growth this whole summer. But I'm going to have to really keep this in mind for future seasons. I may end up having to net all of my plants because the flea beetles are getting worse every year. I started 8 of these little pineapple ground cherries. Guess how many plants I have? 1. Don't know what happened there. She is cute though. Look at all these little ground cherry lanterns. I'm really excited for when they ripen. I also have root infiltration and those Asian jumping worms in this bed. So this is all I've got for cucumbers for the entire season so far. That's it. There's a cucumber right in there. I used to be the cucumber master. This is what I'm left with. Do I know that radishes hate high heat? Yes. Did I plant them too late in the season anyway? Also yes. And here are my beets. I don't think I'm going to get much of a harvest. None of my greens are very big. This time last year I had tons of kale. I had tons of broccolini. I think I'm going to have to do what I did to the tomato bed and just rip out roots, rip out worms, really hope that we can rejuvenate this bed with some compost and new fertilizer. So I want people to know that I realize none of this is the end of the world. I know that a lot of things are doing just fine. I have gotten some beautiful produce from my gardens, and I don't want you to look at this and go, well, if she thinks that's bad, I can't even do that well. I don't want to discourage anyone. Gardening is hard. Gardening has a learning curve. Even when you know what you're doing, you can make rookie mistakes like I did. So I'm going to chalk this up to a big learning lesson year, and I'm going to try again next year. That's kind of the beautiful thing about gardening, is you get a new chance every single year. But what I do want you to know is that if you're ever looking at someone's beautiful garden content and you're going, why doesn't mine look like that? Why can't I do things like that? This kind of stuff is very commonplace. This is why I share my garden fails with you. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. It's going to happen. Don't let it discourage you. Just learn and then keep on growing.